after, good start to the season defensively, maybe a month of struggles, all of a sudden back in form. Pinpoint why you guys were better this past week.
Well, I think anytime that you get a little bit into your depth, depending on what that depth looks like, well, our depth happens to be young at some key areas, and so the only teacher for youth and depth that is young is time and reps and being able to play, and so I think that's probably the biggest thing is the more they play, the more the game slows down, and so I think that's the biggest thing, just experience. The more experience they get, the better they play, just like as you go throughout your career, and so I think that's probably the biggest thing. I had to go back to some fundamentals, which you usually at some point in the middle, toward the middle end of the season, you always have to do. And everybody always I got asked last week about tackling, and that's always the hardest one. How do you, when you're into your depth, how do you practice? You have to be creative with how you practice that. And so we changed up some things that we were doing. You can't go out there and go full speed with with your ones or your twos that now become your ones and just beat the crap out of them for 2 days. You can't do that, but you got to be creative with how you do it. And so we had some good thoughts from our coaches and guys talked around college football, and so we were able to improve on those things, and that's probably the biggest thing.
When you start putting down a list of the hardest things to do today in college football, shutouts is right up there. And you guys are really close to getting one. What you got to be happy with that, first of all, with your guys. But what did you tell them? What was the message when they got that late one?
No, I mean you can let your pride or ego or whatever you want to say get in the way, or you can understand that there's guys out there that need to get reps. You need to get reps off of other guys in the situation, and so you just hope that anybody in that situation when their number's called, they perform. And we actually, the touchdown play, we actually worked that play a ton, but never in that formation, in that field zone against that coverage. And so they really kind of had us there. We worked it they had been an out in the field play for them, and so we wasn't trying to really scheme that up. I'd like for the kids that had a shutout, but at the end of the day, I'm not about to play starters with 6 minutes to go up 37 points.
I mean, they tried a 50-yard field goal really when the game was out of hand anyway to avoid the shutouts. So,
right. Yeah.
I mean, so that speaks well to what your kids did defensively.
Yeah, I mean they did. They played hard. Number one, played fundamentally as good as we probably have all year. Played with a lot of energy. I thought our crowd was great. Thought our stadium was great. They fed off of it, and they come out on fire, and they never look back. And credit to them and all of our coaches for getting them into that point. And so I was really proud of them. Like I said, I'd like to have had the shutout, but common sense and what's ahead takes over.
One more here. You mentioned the depth. Is that the biggest lesson that you guys learned when you got into this league? And it's what maybe the new teams in this league's learning, that you're going to have to go through your depth. You're going to have a deep roster. Because I know BYU was running out of players in that game on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody, and I'm not trying to go on the state of college football rant, but you look at it like everything funnels up, and. If I look at it, and always people want to compare the NFL model. There's a reason there's only 32 teams and they dress 43 or whatever it is, 53 roster spots. And there's not that many guys that are that talented enough to play at that level. Well, if you apply that to Power 5, now you got 85 jobs available at every single team. And so as everything funnels up, to the from the bottom to the mid to the top of college football, that's where here's an example, and I won't say the school. We recruit a portal linebacker in this cycle, right? And if you fast forward it to the situation, here's a kid who's coming from a small level of ball, all right, would have ended up more than likely being a significant contributor here, okay, and maybe even a starter. Who knows? He goes to one of the top programs in the country, and he plays 5 snaps a game. So that would be a significant quality depth, for us, and honestly, BYU, Oklahoma State, Iowa State, everybody, right there. So, that's what the environment creates, and so when you get into it, you hope it's not, the depth is depth, but you just hope it's not young, and I'm talking about young as in, true freshmen, who, on average are not not ready for that situation yet in their career. They more than likely they will be. There's a reason they're there. They're good players, but that's a lot on a young kid. So, that's, I think everybody's fighting that same battle, like you said, across college football.
The biggest difference you notice in Anthony Wilson from UCF to BYU?
Really just confidence in what he's doing. I think that it's obviously a different style of offense. Those types of offenses that UCF does, especially in the run game with RPOs and then the plays off it, man, they stress safeties. They really do. Puts them in some tough situations sometimes. I think that the biggest thing for him was confidence in his fundamentals. He's one of our hardest hitters. He's one of our hardest players. He's one of our best tacklers. And just that game, for whatever reason, it kind of – so we really just got back to basics, and he come out and did a bunch of simple things really good, and it just carried over throughout the game.
Aubrey Burks, the trail play, noticing the ball, punching it out, recovering the fumble. That's his great coaching, right?
Yeah, I'll take credit. I'll take credit for that one. No, that's just. I mean, Aubrey's he's a headsy player. He's a player that plays with a significant, a lot of awareness on the situation, and he understands when those opportunities present themselves. And what a lot of guys don't is they do a lot. Trailing the ball is, and I don't think, receivers are some of them are. Some of them have poor ball security, but on average, they don't. And he just. Aubrey's a strong-handed kid and goes in there and rips the ball out. It's a huge play in the game right before halftime. So, that's, Aubrey. And Aubrey makes a ton of plays like that never show up on a stat sheet, whether it's the run fit, whether it's leverage and perimeter throws and passes and things like that. And that's just he's a real headsy football player.
Aubrey talked a little bit about how once he came back, he knew mentally he had to just go back to his job. He couldn't be hesitant about getting hurt again. But you did mention that when he first came back, he might have been a little less than 100%, just because that's natural. Where do you think he is now? Like, what kind of is that an example? Of maybe
I think his play. I think his play tells you where he's at. He's all the way back. You got to think now. Kid, doesn't really know on the field what the extent of what's going on, and you're on a board and you're going through the whole protocol, which is totally fine. It's what should happen. And mentally, where he, has to get back to, and so it's totally understandable. Where he was, we expected that, but I think his play tells you where he's at now.
Oklahoma, what do they present offensively?
A lot. They've always been good on offense. At least always really. You look at the history of it, and it's just kind of their MO. And they've been a little bit different every year based on their personnel. So one of the things I think they've always done well is cater the offense to their personnel, whether it's running backs to receivers, even tight ends sometimes, especially to the quarterback. I think the history, speaks for itself there. Very similar to a style like a UCF, where they get you in so many different ways. You always hear me talk about split you in half and get you to both sides. So you just have to, your eye discipline has to be where it needs to be. And then you have to fit, your whatever your run responsibility is, but at the same time, you may be a guy that is being in a conflict with an RPO, so it makes it tough. They present a lot. We've been, most everybody at some point in our league has this style of offense or the ability to get to this style of offense. So there's a lot of things that we have seen. They're very explosive, so there's going to be some pieces in their offense that are better than some pieces we face. Schematically, there's a lot of things that we have faced, though.
Offensive line, Oklahoma, comparable to Penn State?
Yeah, I would say. I mean, talent-wise, yes. Schematically, totally different. And so there's some, they're as talented as anybody that across the whole five as we played. It's just different,
Biggest challenge to your defensive line this week with these guys, would you say?
I mean, you have to stay on edges against them. You can't sit in there and try to play. I'll say necessarily down the middle, but you have to get on the edge and you have to penetrate quickly. Otherwise, they kind of, what they try to do a lot of times is kind of collect you, and they're really big, which that allows that a little bit easier to do. So you just have to do, again, like I talked about with Anthony, he had a lot of simple things really, really well, and they make you do it, and then that's what makes it hard.
You haven't mentioned the quarterback yet. You
Sorry?
haven't mentioned the quarterback yet.
Oh, I mean, I don't think I have to. I think his play speaks for itself. I mean, he's been in that system all the way back to when he was at UCF. His numbers, his play, his video, his stats, all of it kind of speaks for itself. I mean, he makes them go. He with his feet and his arm presents some different things because he can RPO the defense as a left-hander from any point on the field, any side, any hash. And so it just keeps you straight up honest in what you're trying to do coverage-wise. So, yeah, I mean, his play, he's one of the better ones we've seen.
Is it fair to say if you were going to manufacture some depth, then it was going to have to be like through Caden, doing what you're doing with Jacoby, and I guess getting Austin Cave back too? Like, there weren't a lot of buttons you could push, and those are three of them, and a little bit can make a difference there.
Say that one more time, Mike.
Yeah,
I'm
it
sorry.
doesn't seem like you had a lot of options to create depth on defense, but getting Caden to play, Austin Cave back a little bit, using Jacoby as a corner to move Malachi. That's I don't know if that's the most you could do, but it's probably close. But little things, but making as big of a difference for depth as you could.
Yeah, I mean, you're always you just go off of play counts, and you kind of have an idea through whether it's the 2 or 3 years into a career, or maybe it's a couple games into the season, kind of where you need to be with your starters, play count wise. And so, any situation where you can, whatever whoever the depth is that you can use, 10 plays is great, 5 plays is great, 15 plays is great. Anything that you can, where you can get those reps, and it may be in special teams too, and get those full speed reps, especially cover teams. Off of those guys, it obviously helps, and especially in our situation, we have been at linebacker to be able to get those guys in. I mean, it's a tremendous help, especially down the stretch. And when you're going to play, majority of your games are going to be decided in the last quarter, and probably less than around one score probably most of the time. So it helps.
Linebackers, you got back, Treek Austin Cave got some snaps this past week. So where is he? How much does it help just to get another body in that you can utilize at linebacker?
Yeah, I mean, it helps a lot. I mean, anytime that you've been out as long as he has, I mean, there's some rust to knock off. There's just simple things, seeing his keys, fitting where he's supposed to, getting to his landmark and his drop where he's supposed to. The practice is practice, but until that, you get full speed, like you're going to have some rust there. But it helps a lot to get him back. And like I said, those, whether it's, 5, 10, 50, whatever the reps are, it doesn't hurt at all.
You guys have been kind of a streaky defense. There was a 4-game stretch where you were dominant. in a 2-game stretch where you struggled a little bit, and now you've kind of got it turned again. How did you get it turned, and what's different from that stretch where you were struggling?
And I think, like I said about the depth, it's experience for those guys. Now I think that going back to that time frame when we were, I mean, it's really overall for the whole group, it was focus and finish. We had opportunities in both the games where we didn't play up to our standard to finish and win the game, and we didn't do it. And I think it was understanding that all those plays matter in our league, and it doesn't matter who, what time, where, when, the day of the week. It just doesn't matter. And so I think that was probably the biggest thing. And we just let some simple things, kind of go to the wayside that we work all the time. But you just have to, you got to stay focused, and you have to continue to improve as the season goes. It's always the hardest thing to do. And I said this during that time frame, is you got to learn how, you got to handle success. Handling success is harder than handling failure. It's easy to handle failure if you're a competitor. You get beat, you come back, you regroup. But when you have success, can you essentially regroup and continue to improve? And that's the hardest thing. And now we've come back and kind of bounced back. I mean, that kind of shows you, especially when you start playing young guys, it's about the growth of those guys as they go throughout the season. They understand that. You hope they do sooner or later, but that's probably the biggest things.
Okay, thanks, Coach.
Thank you.